Mr. President, Excellencies, heads of state and government, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of His Excellency Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, it's a pleasure to take the floor to congratulate His Excellency Mr. Csaba Kőrösi from the Republic of Hungary on his unanimous election as President of the 77th session of the General Assembly of the United Nations. And I'd also like to congratulate the members of the Bureau. We assure you that you will be able to count on the support and cooperation of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea during your presidency. Mr. President, recent years have been very difficult for humanity due to the appearance of a series of multifaceted crises, from the desolation brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. Then we had the energy crisis and the resurgence of food insecurity, the monetary crisis, made worse by the tense international situation that we are currently experiencing at this time as we celebrate the 77th anniversary of the creation of this organization, coinciding with the war between Russia and Ukraine. This global situation today is calling out to us and requires us to make use of innovative multilateral cooperation that is focused on human solidarity. Certainly, and as is stated in the motto for this 77th regular session of the General Assembly, it is a decisive moment for leaders of the world to search for lasting, consensual, transformative and sustainable solutions to these interlocking challenges which are having an impact across the board on all continents of the planet. We are living in a globalized world, and therefore what we need is to forge alliances of support in solidarity and multilateral cooperation. We need frank dialogue in order to resolve inequalities as well as resolve our differences. Indeed, Equatorial Guinea launches today an appeal with regard to the need and importance of giving greater prominence to international multilateralism and cooperation that are so necessary in order to address these global challenges and in order to reactivate development and sustainable economic growth in our respective countries, particularly development. We need to promote the building and strengthening of infrastructure, particularly health infrastructure, in order to not only face possible future pandemics, but also in order to address endemic diseases such as HIV, AIDS, and malaria. Mr. President, the maintenance of international peace and security from the creation of the United Nations to today and into the future, the maintenance of international peace and security must be an imperative for member states, for the development and prosperity of nations. The coexistence of traditional conflicts and the emerging challenges such as transnational crime, cyber security, biosecurity, climate change, and piracy, amongst others, are becoming increasingly prominent, and this means that the situation that we see today in the world can only be solved by seeking through all means possible peace, and that needs to be through inclusive negotiations and dialogue. Equatorial Guinea would like to call upon those countries that are immersed in the current conflicts and the governments that are directly or indirectly involved in those conflicts because of geostrategic interests or economic interests or interests of another kind, we ask them that they give priority to dialogue and inclusive negotiations in a realistic and pragmatic manner in order to resolve them. And it's in that respect that once again we call upon this august assembly so that together we can denounce and categorically reject the constant external interference that is destabilizing certain countries of the world. Mr. President, the African continent must continue to be at the heart of initiatives for supporting and funding development, with a decisive implementation of the commitments for the financing of sustainable development in order to achieve the goals contained in Agendas 2030 and 2063 of the African Union, not leaving anyone behind, and funding support for peacekeeping. These are prerequisites for facing the phenomena of terrorism, migration, trafficking in persons, piracy, mercenary groups, amongst others. These are factors which hinder the development of the African continent. In the face of our own humanitarian challenges, the heads of state and government of the African Union met in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, last May for a special summit as well as a donor roundtable in order to examine and provide the necessary support to address current humanitarian challenges facing Africa, which have been exacerbated by the socio-economic effects of COVID-19 and the disasters that we're seeing throughout the continent. In order to find lasting solutions to the current humanitarian crisis, particularly the humanitarian financing situation. In this context, we welcome the Global Security Initiative presented by the People's Republic of China, the precepts of which are relevant to current global events. Equatorial Guinea is committed to the promotion of human rights. And that is why we have designed a whole host of strategies and national standards to strengthen rights such as the rights of the child, of persons with disabilities, the right to food, to equal access to vaccines against pandemics, access to housing, etc. And with regard to the promotion of justice and international law, Equatorial Guinea would like to once again stress the need to reform the United Nations system, which includes the Security Council. Its structure today is one of the great injustices within the United Nations, and it constitutes a serious lack of democratic spirit in this great organization. Africa, as part of the Esono consensus, has been calling for a correction to this injustice now for more than 15 years. This means allocating 2 permanent seats to Africa, as well as 2 additional non-permanent seats in the Security Council. Within this same context of the promotion of justice and international law, we call for the lifting once and for all of the trade, economic and financial embargo imposed against Cuba 6 decades ago. This brotherly country deserves the opportunity to play its part on the global stage as a sovereign country. Mr. President, in Central Africa, we are following with great concern the persistent situation of crisis brought on by activities of maritime piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. These pirates are acquiring ever more sophisticated methods for greater autonomy in open water, with the subsequent harm and damage for the countries of the sub-region. We welcome the recent resolution adopted by the Security Council of the United Nations urging the countries of the Gulf of Guinea to classify as crimes piracy and armed robbery at sea according to their national laws, as well as to investigate and then prosecute or extradite in accordance with international law those responsible for such crimes, and also those who incite, finance, or facilitate them. As has always been expressed by His Excellency Obiang Nguema Mbasogo in international fora and also at the last 75th regular session of the General Assembly, we would like to insist on the absolute necessity of organizing a summit on the Gulf of Guinea in order to design a strategy to stop the terrorist activities and attempts to threaten regional and international peace and security. We also need to unite our efforts in order to help develop this region so that it can face the challenges which surround it. I conclude, Mr. President, reiterating once again my congratulations and wishing you resounding success during your presidency. Once again, we would encourage the Secretary-General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, to continue his noble work with regard to United Nations reform and to resolutely support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. We would also like to express our fervent hope that the United Nations will assume its role of mediator in global conflicts in order to achieve just and peaceful solutions that are based on dialogue, whilst avoiding having recourse to weapons, which will never resolve any conflict of any kind. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
I thank the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of Equatorial Guinea. I now give